afternoon. And you factor in the humidity with it, feels like temperatures easily in the triple digits and low 100s. We'll watch for a couple of scattered pop-up thunderstorms for the afternoon. But as some drier air works in, our rain chance drop a little bit, as well as our heat just a tad heading into the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Are you sick of running out of hot water? Whether it's in the middle of a shower or doing dishes, cold water's never fun. Say goodbye to those surprises with a Rinnai tankless water heater from GMV Energy. This energy-efficient propane-powered solution heats water instantly, so you'll never run out again. Plus, it saves money and frees up space. Propane models start at just $295 after rebates. Visit any G&V Energy location or gbenergy.com to learn more.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Welcome to Thrive Here Live, your inside look at the people, places, and progress that make Huntersville thrive. From local events to business spotlights, we're bringing you the stories that keep our community connected. I'm Jen Hunt, Huntersville's Mayor Pro Tem. I'm a former English teacher and currently work as a marketing professional at a forestry consulting firm in Charlotte. One of my great passions in my position is environmental issues and ways that we can explore sustainability in Huntersville. We've budgeted an arborist to be hired by January, we're updating our tree mitigation ordinance, and we started an environmental sustainability committee. These topics are in regular rotation. However, one thing we don't talk a lot about anymore is the Colonial Pipeline spill from 2020. I have a guest joining me today to talk about this. Chris Matthews is the Division Director for the Nature Preserve and Natural Resources Division at Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation. Chris is responsible for management, strategic planning, and operations of the division, which incorporates Mecklenburg County's nature preserve systems, environmental education, outdoor recreation, and the natural resources sections. The Division of Nature Preserves and Natural Resources protects, manages, and interprets Mecklenburg County's properties designated as nature preserves. The 28 nature preserves protect the county's biological resources and natural areas, while providing opportunities for environmental education, nature-based programs, and outdoor recreation. The division's staff offer more than 2,500 programs annually, perform natural resource management, maintain more than 85 miles of nature trails, over 8,500 acres, 4 nature centers, and a public campground. Chris is a Charlotte native and has served on several Mecklenburg County Park and Recreation citizen advisory groups since the mid-1990s. He has a BA in biology from UNC Charlotte, an MS in applied ecology and conservation biology from Frostburg State University in Maryland, and was designated as one of the Charlotte Business Journal's 40 Under 40 in 2004. Congrats. He spent 12 years in private consulting before joining Mecklenburg County in 2009. His professional interests include aquatic and terrestrial habitat restoration, freshwater fisheries, stream restoration and stabilization, and protected species management. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Jen. Good to see you.
Woohoo! Yes. All right. So like I said, we're talking about the Colonial Pipeline spill. For listeners who may not be familiar, Chris, can you explain what happened during the spill and why it was such a significant environmental event for our region?
Yeah, so Colonial Pipeline has really large-scale pipes that run from the Northeast all the way to Texas, and they distribute products like gasoline and aviation fuel and diesel fuel all up and down the South and the East Coast. One of those pipelines runs through a significant portion of Mecklenburg County. I was notified on Saturday, July 28th at about 8:40 in the morning. I got a phone call. If you're in Park and Rec, your phone's always on because Park and Rec's always running, doing something.
Sure.
And they indicated that that there had been a spill or a leak. This is like within just a few hours of it happening. So apparently, the way that we found out, 2 teens were riding ATVs along the pipeline right away, and they came across this area that was kind of squishy and it smelled like gas. And so they notified someone, and either the fire department or somebody else. I don't know exactly the story, but Colonial went out there and investigated and did find that there was a gas, what appeared to be a gas spill. So that would have that happened in late July. I think that it took them a little bit of time to gather their resources and figure out what the deal was, but they immediately, to my understanding, shut the pipeline down, went in and started digging around where the pipe was, and they did indeed find a crack in the pipe. Now, it was a lot of gasoline that they actually ended up finding. We ultimately figured out it was around 2 million gallons of gas, which is a big spill. It's
Yeah.
the biggest landward spill in U.S. history.
Mhm.
Now, some people are like, well, certainly Colonial would have missed 2 million gallons of gas. I did some research on what on some of the operations of Colonial, and it looks like that they transport 100 million gallons of gas, heating oil, and aviation fuel every single day.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really big
Yeah.
operation. So you could understand how when you're transporting that much product, a small leak over time, it's very difficult to determine that, you're missing that much. So I don't know that anyone's ever determined how long it was leaking, but certainly it could have been leaking for quite some time before it was discovered.
Wow. Do you know how they perform oversight? Like, do you know how? Because I heard, and I don't want to say anything that could be wrong, but I heard how that sort of thing is kind of tracked or how they look for spills and those kinds of things. And I was wondering if you had any insight into that.
I don't really have a lot of insight. I'm not a petroleum engineer and I don't work for the company, so I don't really
Yeah.
know. I do know that they do regular inspections. They're required to, I guess, from time to time run cameras or do they have ways that they can determine when they lay the pipe. I believe that they have wires and things in there that can detect when things are happening. But again, I'm just a biologist, so I don't really know how they do that.
Fair enough. So, as we mark the anniversary of the spill, what stands out to you most about how the community responded in those early days?
Well, I think there was a lot of worry, clearly. I mean, whenever you have gasoline spilling out into the environment with that in that magnitude, it's pretty challenging for folks. I think a lot of people were worried about their water supply.
Sure.
So a lot of folks are on wells in that area, and people were really worried that their drinking water was going to be contaminated. A lot of people were worried about impacts to the nature preserve and where all the trees going to die. People were worried about gasoline getting into the creek down at the bottom of the hill and killing fish and doing all that stuff. And so I just think people were really concerned with all the unknowns that happen when you have a disaster or an emergency like this.
Yeah. And since you mentioned the unknowns, I mean, this was when we were in COVID, right? Like,
hmm
so I can see how something like this might kind of fall to the wayside. Did you feel any sort of tension or struggle, like you're balancing all the unknowns of the pandemic and what that looked like, and you were still working, right, compared to this and this huge disaster?
Well, I think that at the time when it happened, my major concern was to get Colonial the access that they needed to get the spill stopped as quickly as possible so that we didn't have any more, you know, product getting out. My goal was to do everything that I could to give them the access that they needed and to resource whatever they needed with agreements or whatever to make sure that they had what they needed to get it stopped. That was really my primary concern.
Sure, that's fair. All right, we are going to take a quick commercial break in just a minute here, but stay tuned for more on Thrive Here Live.
Sit tight. We'll be back with more after this on WSIC 1059 100.7 1400 AM. Local starts here.
Well, the heat and humidity are just not going to go anywhere as we kick off a new week around Lake Norman. High temperatures will climb into the upper 90s for our Monday afternoon. and you factor in the humidity with it, feels like temperatures easily in the triple digits and low 100s. We'll watch for a couple of scattered pop-up thunderstorms for the afternoon. But as some drier air works in, our rain chance drop a little bit, as well as our heat just a tad heading into the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. On Thursday, July 24th, the Alec Ottaway Band performs at Langtree Live. Lawn chairs and blankets are welcomed for this good old and new-fashioned country music. The show is free, food and beverages will be for sale, and the concert sound is powered by Waves Entertainment. The Alec Ottaway Band takes the stage at 7 p.m. Thursday for Langtree Live. It is Christmas in July in downtown Mooresville, Thursday through Sunday. Downtown shops will be offering open houses, specials, gifts, treats, and more with a special Sip and Shop on Friday night. Visit downtown Mooresville this weekend for Christmas in July. Friday night, Birkdale Village presents their Live Under the Oaks concert series with a performance by Hey L.A. The band plays at 6 p.m. on the Plaza stage with their popular cover tunes as well as originals. Enjoy music, food, drinks, and community for a fun Friday at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. The 500 Club in Statesville presents live music on Saturday with a performance by country artist Andy Buckner. Don't miss this 6 p.m. show featuring Andy's gritty and soulful voice blending with his honky-tonk style. Visit the 500 Club online for more information on golfing and fun events. The Cookout Summer Shootout Series is at Charlotte Motor Speedway for Champions Night, round number 10, on Tuesday, July 29th. The Summer Shootout season finale includes the addition of school bus racing, fireworks, and a raffle for Monster Truck Bash tickets. Click on charlottemotorspeedway.com for more information on the Summer Shootout and other 2025 events. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
I'll be honest, I wanted to be a diva. Why feel guilty? Let me help you be a diva for a few hours a week. Yes, I'm Andrea, owner of Spotless Clean. Our guarantee? It is very special. If you're unhappy, we'll do it again. Still unhappy? Your fee is donated to a charity of your choice. The Docinho de Coco Guarantee. To honor my grandparents, who taught me both a spotless house and time to live life big are important. Spotless Cleaning and Seed.com.
Too much whining in your world? Come to Paloma in Mooresville for Wine Down Wednesdays. Starting at 4 p.m., half off every glass and bottle. Red, white, rosé, why choose? Unwind with friends, flirt with flavor, and toast to making midweek magic. Visit palomacocktails.com. All right, we're back with more from the Town of Huntersville on WSIC 105.9, 100.7, 1400 AM. Local starts here.
Welcome back to Thrive Here Live. I'm Jen Hunt, Huntersville's Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm joined by Chris Matthews from Mecklenburg County Parks and Rec to talk about the anniversary of the Colonial Pipeline spill in Huntersville. In this section, we do have some responses from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality that I'm sharing with you on air, as well as hearing from Chris. So the first question we have here, where do things stand today with the site cleanup and long-term remediation? DEQ shared assessment of the release has included extensive routine testing of surface waters, soil, water supply wells, and air quality. To date, no water supply wells or surface waters have been impacted by petroleum-related compounds, and no air quality issues have been reported. Chris, can you share where things stand today from your perspective and in the Parks Department?
Yeah, so currently Colonial has equipment on our property that's helping to treat the spill. There are hundreds of wells all throughout the property. Some of them are testing water, some of them are pulling groundwater out that might have gas in it, and some of them are actually pumping air into the ground to help push gas vapors up and out of the soil. They collect those vapors and then pull the gas out of the air that they've pulled out of the ground. And so there's just a lot of pipes and pumps and those kinds of things on our property right now.
Sure. Okay. Another question that we had here is how is DEQ monitoring the environmental impacts, especially in regard to groundwater and soil health? And they shared a comprehensive assessment has defined the extent of soil and groundwater contamination, and cleanup has been actively ongoing since mid September 2020. This 2 million gallon release is significant as being the largest onshore petroleum release in both North Carolina and United States history. Chris, do you have anything that you can add to that?
No, the when a situation like this happens, it really turns into uh, an effort that the local government kind of doesn't have a lot of opportunity to participate in.
Mm.
So there have been some um, federal agencies that were involved, but it's primarily a state-led uh, cleanup effort, and we kind of defer to them to figure out what needs to happen.
Sure, sure. All right. What enforcement actions or requirements has the state placed on Colonial Pipeline, and are there benchmarks they must meet? And so we have another prepared response from DEQ. The cooperative efforts of Colonial Pipeline, DEQ, town and county staff and authorities, and elected officials have been exemplary. These efforts have led to the successful containment and mitigation of potential hazards to the environment and the public. DEQ's project team alone has spent over 5,000 human hours in the management of the site. Cleanup of the release is still ongoing. To date, approximately 1.9 million gallons of gasoline and 23 million gallons of petroleum impacted groundwater have been recovered from the site. This includes liquid gasoline, gasoline incorporated in soils removed during pipeline repairs, and vapor equivalent gallons recovered from effective soil and groundwater media. All soils, liquid product, and extracted groundwater have been transported offsite for proper disposal or recycling. Remediation of remaining soil and groundwater contaminants using air injection and vacuum recovery is still ongoing and will likely continue for several more years. All water supply wells within a 1,500-foot radius of the release were sampled weekly for 3 years and are currently being monitored quarterly. This radius is expanded semi-annually to 2,000 feet. No gasoline impacts have been observed to date. Chris, what can you add to that? What does that look like for you? You're on the site quite a bit, or you used to be, right?
Yeah, I don't make it up there too much anymore. There's really not a whole lot to see. I think the only other thing that I would add is that we required Colonial to let us know anytime that they were having to put new wells in, if they were going to have to take any trees down, if they were going to have to do any significant soil excavations or anything like that. We just wanted to make sure that Colonial was letting us know what they were doing and when it was going to happen. And I had to sign off on a ton of paperwork for all these wells that they put in, all the equipment, the stuff that was going in there. So, but we just made sure that we committed to an open line of communication throughout the whole process.
Sure, which is necessary for something like this, no doubt. What do you think the spill has taught us about the vulnerability of local ecosystems to pipeline infrastructure?
Well, it's kind of interesting because we all rely on 100 million gallons of product flowing daily to run our, to in our lives. I mean, we have to drive, we fly places, some people have to heat their houses. I mean, it's kind of like a part of our infrastructure. It's just unfortunate that, things like this happen from time to time. I know that Colonial didn't want to have a 2 million gallon gasoline
Of
spill. I mean,
course.
that's like it's bad PR and it's bad for the environment and all that kind of stuff. Um, but the way that our economy is built and our daily lives, we have to kind of rely on stuff like this. And so I think from time to time, it's while it's difficult and it creates problems and stuff for us, we also have to realize that there's a lot of convenience that comes along with that, and sometimes we're inconvenienced when things like this happen. Now, being a biologist, I was really, really concerned about all the tree canopy that was there, the wildlife. How is that going to get impacted? As a stream guy, I was worried about the stream being impacted, and we were very fortunate that the the gasoline that was in the ground and underground was deep enough to where the trees still seemed to be fine, and that the gasoline didn't migrate to the creek.
Mm.
And so we, quite frankly, were really fortunate that that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you made such an interesting point that like our lives and the way that our world is kind of set up, it really is often at odds with wildlife, and trying to find this balance to coexist can be really tough.
Right, and that's why we have our nature preserve system, right? Because the wildlife need a place to go too. There's a lot of development in Mecklenburg. We're going to be built out in the next couple of years. A lot of people are moving here, and so that's why it's important to set aside this green space for our wildlife and for people to enjoy in the future, because it's disappearing at a really rapid rate, at least here in the Charlotte metro area.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you project any time when that nature preserve might be open again?
Well, so we need to let Colonial do their thing, and as DEQ pointed out, it might be several years before they're done. Um, Ironically, we had planned back in 2020, 2021 to start beginning to put some trails, natural surface trails, over at Aylor Nature Preserve because we have so much development that's occurred around. People are actually using the park, even though there's no facilities on there, so they're walking in the woods, which is fine. I will have to make a note, though. This is a personal privilege here. The two teens that were riding ATVs, we really appreciate the work that they did, but ATVs are not allowed on Mecklenburg County property. So we're not going to go back. We're not going to get them in trouble or anything like that. But I just want to make sure people understand that, these properties that we have are for walking and enjoying nature, and we don't allow motorized vehicles. So I digressed a little bit.
Yeah,
but I
no,
wanted
that's
to
fair.
make sure that I wanted to point that out. But because of the spill now, we had to alter our plans. So there is a future greenway corridor that's going to be put in, a greenway trail, like our big, 12-foot wide paved path down by the creek. That's at some point in the future. And that's not going to be impacted by any of the Colonial operations because their operations are uphill and not near the creek. But we're going to have to hold off on any natural surface trails for now until Colonial gets their systems done and taken care of, and they begin to demobilize from the site. And I don't know when that's going to be. Could be decades.
Sure. Wow. One other note here that DEQ shared about that previous question about the vulnerability of our local ecosystems, they did note that petroleum pipelines are federally regulated and not subject to state inspection or operational oversight.
Yeah, so that's my understanding. There's a federal, I believe they're a division of the DOT, ironically, but they are responsible for the petroleum pipeline infrastructure.
Wow. Okay. All right, Chris, let's transition here a little bit to talk more about Mecklenburg County Parks and Rec. You talked a little bit about how the spill affected the nature preserve and the local area. Can you add on to that a little bit more? Any additional thoughts you have about how that might have impacted that particular nature preserve, even just the local area?
I think the biggest impact to the area had to do with the just actual operations that Colonial had to put in place. They have, I guess the last number that I saw was almost $60 million that they had to spend in order to, begin to clean the spill up. And what that meant for the residents in the area were 18-wheelers full of water that had gasoline in it being trucked off the site and taken to a water treatment plant, sometimes states away, so that the water could get cleaned. And so that was a lot of air pollution from the trucks and the traffic and just the inconvenience of all those operations along the road. I think for the residents that live there, that was a big deal because it was going on pretty hard and heavy there for quite some time.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there was some concern about the air quality, with the gas and all the other stuff. But I think, I believe we're going to go to break, but after the break, I've got some additional stuff to share with respect to how they're cleaning things up now.
Awesome. All right. Well, we look forward to that. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but stay tuned for more on Thrive Here Live.
Sit tight. We'll be back with more after this on WSIC 1059 100.7 1400 AM. Local starts here.
Well, the heat and humidity are just not going to go anywhere as we kick off a new week around Lake Norman. High temperatures will climb into the upper 90s for a Monday afternoon. And you factor in the humidity with it, feels like temperatures easily in the triple digits and low 100s. We'll watch for a couple of scattered pop-up thunderstorms for the afternoon. But as some drier air works in, our rain chance should drop a little bit, as well as our heat just a tad heading into the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Swing for Hope at the Next Chapter Station Golf Classic on September 22nd at the 500 Club in Statesville to help bring hope and comfort to children fighting cancer. Your support helps us deliver the book Luke and the Lost Bell to 1,000 hospitals. For more information, visit nextchapterstation.org.
Start your day at 228 West Broad Street in downtown Statesville by visiting The Local Collective, and they're home to 40-plus local makers under one roof for all your gift-giving needs. Mention this ad during the month of July and enjoy a free gift. Visit thelocalcollectivenc.com.
With 5 area locations, Desco is your go-to resource for electrical supplies. Albemarle, Mooresville, Salisbury, Statesville, and Lexington. No matter where the job takes you, you're sure to be close to a Desco. Shop now at DescoInc.com.
Harness the healing power of horses. With the amazing staff at Willow Equine in Mooresville, we create a supportive environment conducive to healing and growth, dedicated to self-discovery and overcoming adversity. There's a program for you at willowequine.com.
Harrison's is the home of Work Western, and wow! For nearly 30 years, our family has been boots on the ground when it comes to work. We have the largest selection of in-stock boots in the Carolinas and the best workwear brands like Harriet, Carhartt, and Wrangler. Find us on Norman Station Boulevard in Mooresville.
The #1 station for people who say we're their favorite station.
WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Alaska Airlines flights are flying again, but the company's stock is still hitting turbulence. Shares have been up and down as traders weigh the latest on the Sunday night grounding of its planes due to an IT outage. It's the second IT outage in just over a year for Alaska Air, which warns that although planes are taking off, residual impacts to flight schedules remain. Shares right now are losing 1%. Stock in Microsoft first fell, then rose, as the company works on a fix to a vulnerability with its document management software SharePoint. This after discovering hackers are actively targeting customers. Cybersecurity firms say a broad section of companies, organizations, and governments may be affected by the breach. Tens of thousands of businesses and institutions around the world use SharePoint to store and collaborate on documents. Wall Street's indexes right now higher. Dow gaining 1/3%, Nasdaq up 3/4, S&P up 1/2. Nasdaq and S&P in record territory. Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Home of the best talk.
WSIC. Local starts here.
All right, we're back with more from the Town of Huntersville on WSIC 105.9, 100.7, 1400 AM. Local starts here.
Welcome back to Thrive Here Live. I'm Jen Hunt, Huntersville's Mayor Pro Tem, and I am joined by Chris Matthews from Mecklenburg County Parks and Rec. We're talking about the Colonial Pipeline spill as we're coming up on the anniversary of that soon. Before we went to break, Chris, you were talking about some of the changes that were made on the site from Colonial Pipeline, and you noted that there wouldn't be a water treatment plant there on site anymore. Can you talk more about the current plan?
Yeah, so previously Colonial had applied for and received a permit to put a small water treatment plant on their property across the street from the nature preserve. What they had planned to do was to take the water that is being pumped out of the ground that's tainted with gasoline, transport it over to the water treatment plant, clean it up, and then release the water into the creek at the bottom of the hill. Fortunately, they've done such a good job of removing water, the groundwater that has gas in it, that they've gotten to the point where they believe that they're not going to have to use the water treatment plant, which is great because I know a lot of people were concerned about that.
Sure.
So they're really just relying now on the, I think DEQ mentioned it, the air vacuum system that they're pumping air into the ground and they're collecting the vapors and then they're pulling the gas out of the vapors, and are able to treat it that way. So it appears at this point that the water treatment plant is no longer going to be needed. And I think that's going to make a lot of people happy.
Sure, I could see that. Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about how the spill affected the nature preserve? Because you talked about how the tree canopy and the trees seem to be okay. What about the wildlife?
Um, there was a lot of concern. I mean, I had a lot of conversations with county commissioners, Commissioner Powell in particular, who we know she's heavily invested in the park system and nature and whatnot. I think a lot of people had this vision that the Colonial Pipeline spill, it was 2 million gallons of gas and everything was like brown and dead, and that just didn't happen because the impacts were deep in the soil. I mean, some of this gas was 30 or more feet down underground, and so you just couldn't see it.
Right.
I mean, people were, and I did a lot of tours out there, and people were like, "Well, this just kind of sort of looks like a forest," and and it was like, yeah, because the impacts were underground, you couldn't really see it. So I'm sure our soils there it's going to take a really long time for the microbes and all the things that live in the dirt and the soil to come back. It'll be a really long time from now. We didn't see too much impact to wildlife. I know that where the spill actually came up out of the ground, where the teens found it when they were riding, there was a dead snake and that maybe a possum or a raccoon, and we lost some trees kind of in that general area. But when Colonial came in and cleaned all that soil up, they put good soil back in. So we haven't really seen a lot of impact in general to wildlife or to the vegetation. Well, like I said, primarily because it's just the gas was deep in the ground.
Yeah, that's really fortunate. And I think you made a good point too about what the spill looks like, because like in my mind, I think of those commercials, that one dish soap brand, right? And they're like cleaning this poor little duck or something that's covered in oil. And that sounds like that wasn't really what happened here at all. Like that's not what people would have seen.
Right. Yeah. The gas just leaked into the ground, and it was interesting. The pipeline runs over a rock formation. It's like an underground mountain, and the gas came and basically filled up around the rock formation. And because of the way that the gas entered the soil and then caught the mountain of rock underneath, it flowed out to the sides,
Mm.
and the rock and the soil and everything kind of trapped the gas all in that kind of one location. So we
Wow.
were just really fortunate that it happened where it did.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That does sound really, really fortunate. Can you talk about if you've had to, educate the public or restore trust in these outdoor spaces? Has that been an impact of this for you at your level?
So it hasn't been for me, but certainly Colonial got beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal, and they had to answer a lot of really hard questions. But I will have to say that from my perspective, they were good to work with. They were very responsive. They kept me in the loop on things. It was unfortunate to have to work on the project, but I will say that they were very responsive to what we needed to have happen.
Yeah. That's great. Have any habitat restoration projects, replantings, or any other long-term monitoring effects emerged as a result of this?
So we're looking at doing regular drone flyovers just to kind of see if the tree canopy is still doing okay. And so far, it seems to be fine. We're not going to be able to go in and do any restoration work until after Colonial's done.
Yeah.
But there's a provision in the agreement that we finally hammered out with them that they have to do a whole lot of work to put the site back in the condition kind of similar to what it was prior to the spill happening. So they're going to be planting some trees. They're going to be working with Park and Rec to make sure that the tree species are the right ones, and any of the other things that they're going to have to do. There's a pretty significant requirement that they clean things up and make it look nice once it's done.
Sure. Okay. So the public can't go there now, correct?
Yeah, so the site is closed to the public because we don't want people walking around and tripping over, piping or, messing up some of Colonial's equipment out there, because that's just going to slow the process down if something happens. And we just want to make sure this thing gets cleaned up as soon as it can.
Absolutely. Do you know of any public-facing resources or data dashboards where community members can stay updated? DEQ shared that they have a website dedicated to project data and documents. And I'm not going to read the URL because that would be weird. But if you Google NCDEQ Colonial Pipeline Spill Dashboard, you should be able to get this up and it'll give you all the information. But Chris, do you know of any public-facing resources that the county has?
The county doesn't really have anything. We let Colonial and DEQ run the show on any kind of public output, public information, and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah. And in Huntersville, I'll say that we do have a section on our website about this. And it probably mostly shares the same type of information. But for anyone who wants to do some additional digging, we do have some information on the town website as well. Chris, have there been any opportunities for community input or volunteer efforts? Have anybody asked about doing that?
No, not yet. We'll probably have those opportunities, late in the process once things are starting to demobilize and kind of, shut down. But it's going to be years before we probably have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that when we get ready to put the Greenway Trail in, as part of our projects, we always reach out and have community meetings about, when we're going to do a new park or new facility. So that actually may happen before we actually get a chance to do any restoration at the spill location. I don't know the timeline for the Greenway. It's still probably a good ways out, but that would be the next community input for a park facility at that location.
Sure. And do you already get a lot of community input for parks and greenways?
So any project that we do, and it doesn't matter what it is, it's a new pavilion, it's a revamping of an old park, it's putting, equipment or fields on a piece of land that hasn't previously had it. We always go out to the public and get input from them. We kind of self-require ourselves to have several public meetings where we tell people what kind of things we're thinking about doing and what we can do and what we can't do, and we get public feedback because it's their park. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we're giving folks in general what they need to enjoy the park space.
Sure. And you get a lot of feedback?
It depends. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. It depends on where the facility is, where the park is, and what the neighborhood's like. And some neighborhoods are super engaged and others, quite frankly, are not. So it's variable. And, we cover the whole entire county from, north to south, and work with the municipalities, Huntersville and Cornelius and Davidson and Matthews and Pineville. We all work together to do parks. And it's really interesting. Some folks are really, really engaged, and others are just ambivalent.
Sure. Yeah, and I can speak just from Huntersville experience. We love our parks. Mm-hmm. We love our parks and greenways here for sure. Okay. What lessons do you hope our region takes away from this incident, whether environmentally, politically, as a community, et cetera?
Well, I think the big thing is, at least for me, that this is not going to be the last time something significant happens. And I think it's important for when something like this does happen to, let folks do their job. Let's get in there and figure out what the deal is and try and get it fixed as quickly as possible. I think the biggest thing is a commitment to communication, just so that people understand what's going on and what the expectations are. I think there were hits and misses on this particular issue, but I'm glad that we're in a position now where we can say we're kind of on the back end.
Sure. DEQ also shared at this point that I think is worth reiterating, that the release was discovered accidentally by 2 local residents, not by monitoring or technology. So it kind of goes back to the see something, say something, right? Like if you see something, you should definitely bring it to someone's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're walking the nature preserves and you see something, then just, let us know. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We are going to take a quick commercial break, but stay tuned for more on Thrive Here Live.
Sit tight. We'll be back with more after this on WSIC 105.9, 100.7, 1400 AM. Local starts
starts here.
Well, the heat and humidity are just not going to go anywhere as we kick off a new week around Lake Norman. High temperatures will climb into the upper 90s for our Monday afternoon. And you factor in the humidity with it, feels like temperatures easily in the triple digits and low 100s. We'll watch for a couple of scattered pop-up thunderstorms for the afternoon. But as some drier air works in, our rain chance should drop a little bit, as well as our heat just a tad heading into the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. On Thursday, July 24th, the Alec Ottaway Band performs at Langtree Live. Lawn chairs and blankets are welcomed for this good old and new-fashioned country music. The show is free, food and beverages will be for sale, and the concert sound is powered by Waves Entertainment. The Alec Ottaway Band takes the stage at 7 p.m. Thursday for Langtree Live. It is Christmas in July in downtown Mooresville, Thursday through Sunday. Downtown shops will be offering open houses, specials, gifts, treats, and more with a special sip and shop on Friday night. Visit downtown Mooresville this weekend for Christmas in July. Friday night, Birkdale Village presents their Live Under the Oaks concert series with a performance by Hey L.A. The band plays at 6 p.m. on the Plaza stage with their popular cover tunes as well as originals. Enjoy music, food, drinks, and community for a fun Friday at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. The 500 Club in Statesville presents live music on Saturday with a performance by country artist Andy Buckner. Don't miss this 6 p.m. show featuring Andy's gritty and soulful voice blending with his honky-tonk style. Visit the 500 Club online for more information on golfing and fun events. The Cookout Summer Shootout Series is at Charlotte Motor Speedway for Champions Night, round number 10, on Tuesday, July 29th. The Summer Shootout season finale includes the addition of school bus racing, fireworks, and a raffle for Monster Truck Bash tickets. Click on charlottemotorspeedway.com for more information on the Summer Shootout and other 2025 events. Stay up to date and find out about local events, job opportunities, real estate information, and more. Visit liveworkplaylkn.com and sign up for the weekly newsletter. That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
Glow IV Spa, wellness delivered. Recharge fast with Glow IV Spa. Lake Norman's mobile vitamin therapy. Boost your energy, immunity, and glow with IV drips delivered to your door. Book now at glowivspa.com.
All right, we're back with more from the Town of Huntersville on WSIC 105.9, 100.7, 1400 AM. Local starts here.
Welcome back to Thrive Here Live. I'm Jen Hunt, Huntersville's Mayor Pro Tem, and I'm joined by Chris Matthews from Mecklenburg County Parks. We've been talking about the history of the Colonial Pipeline spill and where it stands now. For our last segment, we're going to reflect and look forward and just talk about all the awesome parks that we have here in Huntersville. Chris, do you feel like the Colonial Pipeline spill has shifted public awareness around environmental risks and accountability?
I think locally, the folks that were affected by the spill with all the traffic and the concerns and whatnot about their drinking water and their property and all that. I think there was a lot of concern about that. Did it translate into a region-wide, concern about it? Probably not. I think people are, after the spill occurred, Colonial got hacked, right? And they
Yes.
had to shut the pipeline down, and everyone was freaking out that they weren't going to get gas, right? That's what people are worried about is the impact to their, and I am too, right? The impact to their daily life and being able to do what they need to do and get somewhere. But I think just from the sheer environmental perspective, it probably doesn't translate into a lot of concern for most people.
Yeah, and I think you just made a good point that we don't hear much about these things or we don't talk much about these things anymore because people kind of just get so wrapped up in the daily minutia of their lives, right? Like you said, well, I want to make sure that I have gas, or thinking back to the pandemic when this first happened, I got to get toilet paper, right? All those kinds of things that are just part of our daily lives. We're always kind of caught up in that and not really so much paying attention to this kind of thing.
Right. I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, what should residents know or do to support environmental protection in their own backyards moving forward?
Well, we always encourage people to, be cognizant about, for example, how much fertilizer they use. We don't want to over fertilize things because the fertilizer runs into the creek or stream or into the gutter when it rains, and then that creates issues in our streams with too much nutrients, and then the algae comes, and so it's things like that. We encourage, just kind of the low hanging fruit of don't dump oil down into the storm drains.
Mm.
If you live near a park, we hope that you respect that that's park space and don't go in and cut trees down and
Sure.
things like that. We don't want folks building their own trails on park property because there's really a science behind building trails, and there's several organizations in the area that help promote wildlife habitat. So, joining or looking up those organizations can help you provide water, shelter, and food for wildlife. And a lot of people are into birds, but birds aren't the only wildlife that we have. So the little things matter. I mean, you get enough people that are doing one thing or two things, and it ends up being like a real deal. So, every little bit helps.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. So my yard, we have the National Wildlife Federation. We have those signs, and it's like a certified wildlife habitat. And then we have it for the Butterfly Highway as well. Since you brought it up, I would love to ask you, like, what are some components you think people should put in their yard that would help attract wildlife or help create cover and, maybe like a more hospitable space for wildlife?
Yeah, so native plants are really important because our native wildlife understand how to use our native plants. Now, our native plants are showy typically, and they don't have like beautiful flowers because that's just not what we have here in the Piedmont.
Sure.
So I think a combination of, having some, cool ornamental stuff that may not necessarily be native, but backing it up with some native plants is really important. I always tell people to make sure that they have low growing, medium growing, and high growing things in their yard. That stratification allows different animals to use different parts of your landscaping. Birds, if you put a bird feeder up, if you put it near a tree, that allows the small songbirds to escape a hawk. If the hawk's trying to swoop down, the birds can escape. And you put a bird feeder out in the middle of the yard, and that's a hawk's got to eat too. I get it,
Right.
but they can take a bird out, and that can be traumatizing. If you have your child out there and you see that happen. Water is really important. So
Mhm.
not only for wildlife, but for butterflies as well. So if you have opportunities to be able to put some kind of water feature out there, or even just a shallow dish or just something, then animals need water in addition to the food and the shelter.
For sure. Yeah, since you mentioned that for the insects and butterflies and whatnot, we just have like a small base of a terracotta pot, and then we put some stones in there,
hmm
and then just put some water in there so they have somewhere to land, so
Right.
that they don't drown in the water. Um, and I want to disagree with you real quick, Chris, because we
Okay.
do have some really pretty flowers. Like I love the cone flowers and the sunflowers that grow here. Those are really beautiful, and it's super cool to see like a goldfinch landing on the sunflowers, and they eat the seeds directly off there. It's pretty cool.
Y- Definitely, I do not disagree. We have a few of those that more people. It'd be nice if more people planted, echinacea and rudbeckia and things like that.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're interested, listeners, you can go to the National Wildlife Federation and you can check out that program. It's a pretty cool one. Chris, let's talk about some of the other really amazing greenways and parks we have in Huntersville. I especially love Lotta because who doesn't? It's amazing. And then Stevens Road. Can you talk a little bit about these parks and any of the other greenways that we have in Huntersville? Anything that you're particularly excited about or features of those parks that you really like?
Yeah, so the northern part of the county is blessed with nature preserves, and the reason for that is back in the early 2000s, the Board of County Commissioners said we're going to protect Mountain Island Lake watershed. So for those of you that don't know, Mountain Island Lake is where we get our drinking water. So 1 million+ people rely on clean water coming out of Mountain Island Lake, and the park department has purchased over 3,000 acres around on the Mecklenburg County side of the lake to protect it from development. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of ball fields up here, but we do have some of the most important green space in the county is in the Huntersville area. Latta is certainly super popular. We got a lot of trails out there, but we're trying to open up more nature preserves so that Latta isn't loved to death. Because we get so many people coming out there, it's really, really hard to manage and maintain. And so, areas like Buckeye Cove, which used to be called Stevens Road, but it was confusing for people, so now we call it Buckeye Cove. That's one. Rural Hill Nature Preserve is a big one that the Highland Games they happen up there. We've got so many great spaces in northern Mecklenburg, and it's not just nature preserves. We're buying property now to help facilitate new parks in the area. So I know that we've purchased property recently where Harris Boulevard dead ends into Mount Holly Huntersville Road, and there'll be a brand new park someday right there that'll be adjacent to Gar Creek Nature Preserve. We've got another piece of property that we purchased at Alexandriana and North Lake Center Parkway we call it the North Lake property, but it's a big property that at some point in the future is going to be a park. And so we continue to buy property and work with the towns in the town of Huntersville to try and provide additional recreation for folks, because Huntersville has been rapidly expanding. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, I grew up here, and I used to come up north, had friends that lived at Lake Norman, and I used to come up here all the time. And I can remember literally when Cornelius had a Hardee's and a Cashin's, gas station and an ABC store and a Quincy's maybe, and that was it.
Wow.
And what it looks like today. It's crazy. So just the amount of development means that the Park and Rec departments, not only for Mecklenburg County, but for Huntersville and all the towns, they really have a lot of work to do to try and make sure that we have high quality recreation spaces for folks. And some people really like ball fields so that their kids can play soccer, and some people just want to walk a trail. So a nature preserve is also a park. It's just a park of a different kind of, for people that just want that passive recreation and view wildlife and just kind of be out in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Latta for that exact purpose. Like, I love going on the trails, and you mentioned people who just care about birds. I'm kind of that person. I was like, oh, just at me next time, Chris. But yeah, I love going to Latta and like looking at the birds, and that meadow in the middle is like the perfect spot to do some birding. What's your favorite park, just out of curiosity?
So my favorite my favorite nature preserve, I'll just put it this way. My favorite nature preserve is Flat Branch. Flat Branch Nature Preserve is in extreme South Charlotte. It's kind of off of Tom Short Road, just almost way, way, way down south. I don't know why I like that one so much, but I had an opportunity to walk the county back in the early 2000s as a contractor looking for unusual land, endangered species, rare forest types, and a lot of these areas that I was able to be a part of identifying actually became part of our nature preserve system. And I just remember walking at Flat Branch. It's got these really cool wetlands out there and salamanders and all this kind of stuff, and I just kind of fell in love with it. So it's one that probably not a lot of people in Huntersville would, ever see, and it's not really big, but that's just like my favorite nature preserve. My favorite park, man, I don't really know. I think my favorite park is probably, I hate to be cliche, but Freedom Park's just got a cool vibe about it. And I've been going to Freedom since I was a little kid, so I gotta chalk that one up. That one's got a lot of visitation too. That's probably overloved as well.
Yeah, you're probably
But
right.
we hope to create spaces like Freedom Park and other parts of the county so that people can enjoy, spaces like that.
Definitely. I'll have to check out Flat Branch. Thanks for that recommendation. I
Sure.
love a wetland.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining me today. Any final thoughts?
No, I appreciate it being here, Jen, and hopefully we'll get past this colonial thing, soon. And we look forward to everyone coming out and visiting our parks, because we love you guys and we make really great spaces for y'all. So we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. That's a wrap for Thrive Here Live, where community grows, stories unfold, and we thrive together. Until next time, stay connected, stay involved, and keep thriving.
Mooresville,